The economy continues to shed jobs, with June's unemployment data coming in worse than most economists expected. So what's Washington doing to turn the economy around? Jared Bernstein is standing by at the White House with a first on Bloomberg interview. He is the chief economic advisor to Vice President Biden. Mr. Bernstein, welcome to Bloomberg News. And people have been telling us here all day the numbers shocked even them. What's the White House's reaction?
This president is acutely aware of the difficulty that working American families face in a job market like this one. Were these numbers disappointing? Of course they were. On the other hand, I think there's solid evidence that some of our economic interventions, including the Recovery Act, are taking hold and helping make things a little less bad than they would be otherwise.
And Mr. Bernstein,
I'll tell you, I want to be very, but Mark, let me be very clear about this point.
Yes, sir.
Less bad is not the goalpost we're shooting for here.
And you said some solid evidence. What might that evidence be?
Sure, good question. First of all, if you look at some of the indicators on the overall economy, retail sales appears to have stabilized. The existing home sales stabilized. Even if you look at the job market, and there you see some truly negative numbers, you'll note that, that the average job losses per month in the second quarter, 436,000. Large, too big. It's a big negative. But compare that to the first quarter, where the average job losses were 700,000 per quarter, over 2 million jobs in that quarter. So a deceleration in the rate of job loss in the second relative to the first quarter. Nothing like we're looking for by any means, but that is some progress.
Mr. Bernstein, what about the steep rise of long-term unemployment during the recession? What policies can the administration be putting together to address that?
That's a really important question, because long-term unemployment means that job creation is absolutely too weak. And here the Recovery Act really comes into play. We've allocated $160 billion of this act so far, and it's only 130 days old. We have 20,000 approved projects. 5,000 of those are road or transportation projects. 2,000 of those are actually in the field, up and running now, employing people who would otherwise be jobless. That's going to ramp up during the summer months, and so we're going to see some job creation providing some truly necessary relief to that long-term unemployment problem.
Would the president push for more stimulus money if things don't start to get better sooner?
I think the answer to that question has to wait as we more closely examine the impact of the Recovery Act, give it a fair chance, get the medicine into the system, see how it's going to work. As I said, 130 days old, $160 billion allocated thus far. We're talking about a $787 billion act. So it's too early to make that judgment yet, Mark.
Mr. Bernstein, you've heard the criticism about the stimulus, that it isn't working. But then the White House has been saying that's unfair because a lot of that money hasn't been spent yet. If that is in fact the case, would that then mean that the plan was poorly conceived and poorly rolled out?
Obviously, I'm going to disagree on both of those fronts. The Recovery Act is working. If your benchmark of a working Recovery Act is a falling unemployment rate and net positive job numbers, I'd argue that's the wrong benchmark.
Right.
It's always difficult to convey this, but it happens to be the truth, which is that the unemployment rate would be growing higher. The rate of job loss would be deeper in the absence of this act. In terms of the rate of spend out, the president has said many times we have a tough road ahead of us in the job market. It's always a lagging indicator. Even as the economy is widely forecasted to go into positive territory in GDP terms towards the end of the year, we think the job market's going to lag. So it's actually important that this plan continue to spend out throughout next year.
Mr. Bernstein, I have about 30 seconds left. You've heard there's reduced numbers for the health care reform plan. CBO estimates now it might be $611.4 billion. That's according to a letter from Senator Kennedy and Senator Dodd. How's the White House view that? Is that going to make it easier to try to get this passed this year?
I think I'm going to wait and let some of the healthcare team respond to that. What I would say is that what's important there is that the health care plan that we have articulated is a deficit-neutral plan. That is, we have found savings and revenue to pay for every dollar of our health care reform proposal.
Yeah.
So whatever that level is, the critical point from our perspective is that it's deficit neutral.
Jared Bernstein of the Vice President's Economic Team. Mr. Bernstein, thanks so much. We appreciate it.